Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for gathering here today. Get ready because I'm about to take you to a very, very long time ago, to a time when gods ruled from the heavens and heroes walked the earth. Have you ever heard of Hercules? Yes, he was no ordinary hero. He was incredibly strong, but his life was full of challenges. And today, you're going to hear his story about 12 incredibly difficult and even impossible tasks he must complete to make amends. Ready for an adventure with Hercules? Let's get started. And so ends the incredible story of Hercules. After completing 12 tasks full of danger and wonder, he proves that true courage is not just about strength, but also about determination, sacrifice, and a willingness to improve. Hercules is not only a hero to his world, but a legend to us all. In a time when the heavens were still inhabited by gods, and the earth was filled with mythical creatures, a child was born from the mingling of the mortal and divine worlds, Heracles, later known to the Romans as Hercules. He was the son of Zeus, ruler of the heavens and supreme god on Mount Olympus, and Alcmene, a noble and wise human woman from Thebes. From birth, Heracles was already an extraordinary figure. His body was big and strong, even as a baby, and in him flowed demigod blood, a destiny that made him hated by the single most powerful figure on Olympus, Hera, Zeus' rightful wife. Hera, enraged by her husband's infidelity, bore a great grudge against the child of that relationship. She could not touch Zeus, but she could destroy the child. Since Heracles was a baby, Hera had tried to kill him by sending two huge snakes into Heracles' cradle. However, instead of crying out in fear, little Heracles laughed and strangled the two snakes to death. The world knew immediately this was no ordinary child. Despite growing up to be a man of strength, Heracles could not fight the fate that the gods had outlined. In one of Hera's cruelest schemes, she sent Heracles into a frenzy of madness. In his unconscious state, he slaughtered his own family, his faithful wife, and the children he loved with all his heart. When he came to, the blood was still on his hands. Agony and regret weighed more heavily on his soul than any stone could lift. Heracles became a shadow of his former self, racked with unspoken guilt. He didn't want to run away from that guilt, he wanted to make up for it. He took a long walk to the temple of the Oracle of Delphi, where the gods spoke through a holy priest. There, a supernatural voice commanded him, to atone and restore honor, Heracles must serve King Eurystheus, the cunning and cowardly ruler of Tyrants. Under this king's rule, he must complete 12 tasks. Tasks designed not only to torture his body, but also to shake his soul and faith. These tasks were not arbitrary. Each was a mission that no man had ever successfully undertaken vis-a-vis mythological creatures, defying the forces of nature, and even going against the will of the gods. But Heracles did not back down. With the strength inherited from Zeus, the courage of a man, and the determination to make amends, Heracles embarked on the most legendary journey in Greek mythology. 12 tasks, one redemption, an immortal name. First task, the Lion of Nemea. After receiving orders from King Eurystheus, Hercules embarked on a long journey to the Valley of Nemea, a region filled with fear and desolation, as it was inhabited by monstrous creatures that could not be killed by ordinary human weapons. The Lion of Nemea. This creature was no ordinary lion. It was the size of a chariot. Its eyes blazed like burning coals, and its roar could make the bravest soldiers flee in terror. But what was most terrifying was that its skin was hard as steel, impenetrable to swords, arrows, or spears. People in the surrounding villages have long since abandoned their land in fear. Empty houses, neglected fields, and desolate forests all became the lion's domain. Many knights and hunters tried to subdue the creature, but none returned. But Hercules was undaunted. Arriving in Nemea, he began to walk through the forest, which was littered with scratch marks on trees and the bones of prey. He prepared his bow and arrows, sharpened his sword, and readied his spear. He knew this was no ordinary battle. As dusk began to fall, there was a great roar from behind the hill. The ground shook, branches snapped, and out came the Nemean Lion, with fangs that could shatter stone and eyes full of rage. Hercules took up archery. The arrow whizzed straight at him and bounced off the shield. He tried to stab with his spear, but the metal tip bent when it touched the creature's skin. Even his sword, which had defeated many opponents, broke in the middle of the battle. Realizing that weapons were useless, Hercules threw them all away and leapt at the lion with his bare hands. It was a brutal battle between the power of a demigod and a mythical beast. The lion's claws tore through the air, sharp teeth sought to pounce, but Hercules held his ground. He wrestled the beast to the ground, then wrapped his arms around the lion's neck. He exerted all his strength, veins tightening, his body trembling under the pressure, until finally, with a loud cry, he choked the Nemean lion to death. The lion's body fell motionless. Hercules collapsed, exhausted, but successful. But his work was not done. He had to skin the creature as proof of victory. But the lion's skin was so tough, not even a knife could cut it. Then Hercules had an idea. He used the lion's own claws to skin its body. Patiently, he separated the skin from the flesh, and finally wore the lion's skin as body armor, a suit of armor that would later become a symbol of his strength. When Hercules returned to Tiryns with the lion's skin and head on his shoulders, King Eurystheus was so frightened that he hid in a large urn. From then on, the king even forbade Hercules to enter the palace directly, and only delivered the next task from afar. One task completed. Second assignment, Hydra of Lerna. After successfully slaying the Lion of Nemea, Hercules was not given long to rest. King Eurystheus, increasingly anxious about the hero's strength, gave him a second task, killing the Hydra of Lerna, a monstrous creature even more deadly than the previous lion. The Hydra is no ordinary creature. It lived in a poisonous swamp near Lerna, a desolate and gloomy place shrouded in mist and the stench of death. Its body was like a giant snake, but its heads were many, and every time one head was cut off, two new heads would grow in its place. One of the heads was even immortal, indestructible by any weapon. Even the gods were reluctant to approach the swamp of Lerna. But Hercules was not alone this time. He brought along his loyal and intelligent nephew, Iolaus, to accompany him in this seemingly impossible battle. Upon arriving at Lerna, they discovered the Hydra's lair, a huge gaping cavern amongst the foul swamps, surrounded by the bones of animals and humans. Carefully, Hercules covered his nose from the toxic fumes and entered the darkness. As soon as his steps were heard, the earth trembled, and from within emerged the Hydra, a repulsive creature with a body glistening with slime and a head that hissed in unison, each swinging and opening its mouth, revealing sharp, poisonous teeth. The battle begins. Hercules strikes with his sword and cuts off one head. But within seconds, two new heads appeared in its place. It attacked again and again, but each cut only multiplied its enemies. The Hydra went wild, and its toxic vapors began to fill the cave. Knowing that sheer force was not enough, Hercules summoned Iolaus. With his ingenuity, Iolaus took a torch, lit a fire, and burned the freshly cut necks before the new heads had a chance to grow back. The two of them worked like one body. Hercules cut, Iolaus burned. Head after head fell and no longer grew. But the biggest challenge remained one immortal head, which was indestructible. With incredible strength, Hercules struck the head with his iron mace and decapitated it in one swing. But the head remained alive, writhing even as it was detached from its body. He quickly picked up a large rock and buried the head underground, out of reach of anyone. In addition, Hercules soaked his arrows in Hydra's blood, for the creature's blood was so poisonous that it could kill anyone it hit, even with a single scratch. With the task completed, Hercules and Iolaus returned, bringing news of victory. But King Eurystheus, always looking for an opening to belittle the hero, said that this task was unauthorized, as Hercules was assisted by others. Nevertheless, the world knew. Another monster had fallen by the hand of Heracles. The second task was complete. Third task, capture the Cerynea deer. After facing monstrous creatures like the Lion of Nemea and the Hydra of Lerna, many people thought that Hercules' task would be even more brutal and blood-soaked. But King Eurystheus, who was running out of ideas, gave him a different mission this time, to capture a sacred deer. But not just any deer. It was known as the Cerynea deer, an animal extremely rare and sacred to the goddess of the hunt, Artemis. Its body was slender, its legs lightning fast, and most striking. Its antlers glistened with gold, while its nails were made of bronze. She lives in the virgin forests of Serenia, on the northern border of Greece. There was one condition. Hercules had to capture it alive without harming it. If the deer was harmed, it would bring the wrath of Artemis down upon it, and facing the wrath of a hunting goddess was not something anyone wanted, not even the son of Zeus. Cautiously, Hercules began the chase. Day after day, he traced tracks in the grass, followed broken branches, heard the rustling of leaves, but the deer was incredibly fast. Once spotted, it was gone in an instant behind a mist or a gap in the rocks. Days turned to weeks. Weeks gave way to months. Months gave way to seasons. For a whole year, Hercules wandered the valleys, mountains, and forests to catch this animal. He crossed frozen rivers and golden meadows crossed by the sun, not with anger, but with patience. He knew this was not a fight, but a test of perseverance and honor. Until one fall morning, when the dew still hung on the leaves, Hercules saw the silhouette of the deer drinking by the lake. He held his breath. With steps as silent as shadows, he ducked and slowly approached. He carried no spear or sword, only a small net and a fine mesh. When the deer turned its head, everything was silent. The deer's golden eyes met Hercules, and it was as if the universe held its breath. In a precise instant, Hercules threw the snare at the deer's feet, and with a deft movement, he managed to tame and capture it alive, without a drop of blood, without a scratch. But before he could return to Tiryns, the sky darkened and the air turned cold. Before him appeared Artemis, standing majestically with bow in hand and gaze as piercing as the full moon. "Why do you disturb my sacred animal, Hercules?" she asked. With his head bowed, Hercules explained that this was not his wish, but a task from Eurystheus. He did not mean to harm the deer. He even guarded it for a whole year without the slightest injury. Seeing Hercules' sincerity and respect, Artemis melted. She allowed him to take the deer to Tiryns on one condition: it must be released back into nature after being shown to the king. Hercules agreed. Arriving at the palace, King Eurystheus prepared to take possession of the deer, wanting it as a symbol of his power. But just as the king tried to grab hold of it, Hercules released the noose, and the deer jumped gracefully, disappearing into the forest like a gust of wind. The third task was complete. Task 4. Capture the wild boar. Erymanthos. After the patient task of capturing the golden stag, Hercules returned to Tiryns. But before he could rest, King Eurystheus, always eager to humiliate him, was already preparing his next mission. This time the threat came from the western mountains. A giant wild boar was rampaging through the region of Erymanthos. This was no ordinary boar. It was almost as tall as an adult horse, its tusks were long and sharp as swords, and its strength was enough to overturn carts and tear down houses. Every winter, these creatures descended from the mountains and terrorized the villages on the slopes, ravaging fields, killing livestock, and even tearing apart humans who couldn't escape. Hercules' task: to capture the boar alive. Armed only with weapons to defend, not kill, Hercules climbed into the Erymanthos mountains, which were covered in deep snow. The cold wind cut into his skin, and the mist limited his vision. But the hero kept climbing, approaching the boar's lair hidden among the cliffs and cypresses. On the way, he stopped at the home of an old centaur named Pholus, a wise, half-human, half-horse creature. Pholus welcomed Hercules kindly, fed him, and warned him how dangerous the boar was. But Hercules just smiled. "I have not come to fight, only to capture," he said. The next day he entered the snowy forest at the top of the mountain. Large clawed tracks appeared on the ground, indicating that the pig had just passed by. Hercules followed the tracks carefully, and suddenly from behind the snow trees, the boar Erymanthus lunged. The monster came like a storm, emitting a low growl and cold, steamy breath. Hercules jumped out of the way, the boar's massive body smashing into a pine tree until it fell. But Hercules had a plan. Instead of fighting back, he lured the pig up to higher ground, into the thicker snow. He ran, jumping between rocks, provoking the pig's fury to keep chasing him. And when they reached the highest peak, the boar slipped and got stuck in the deep snow, sinking to its belly. The opportunity was not wasted. With great strength, Hercules leapt onto its back, tamed it with steel ropes, and tied its snout. After a long struggle, the boar finally bowed under Hercules' strength. He then carried the beast alive down the mountain, traveling for days until it arrived at Tyrann's palace. Upon seeing such a huge boar being carried alive, King Eurystheus was terrified. He fled and hid in a large bronze urn, ordering Hercules to hurry the creature away from the palace. The fourth task was complete. Task 5. Cleaning King Eurystheus' stables. After wrestling with beasts and facing the wild, Hercules is given a task that sounds strange. There are no monsters, no battles, no blood. But don't be fooled. This task was far from easy, even for Greece's mightiest hero. He had to clean the cowshed, not just any stable. This was the stable of King Eurystheus of Elis, a king who was very rich in livestock. It housed thousands of cows, bulls, and other livestock, and had not been cleaned for 30 years. The stench could be smelled from miles away. The piles of manure are as tall as a man. The ground was muddy, and spread disease. No servant, soldier, or even citizen dared to go near it, let alone clean it. Yet King Eurystheus ordered Hercules to clean it within a day. The task seemed humiliating. King Eurystheus himself was humiliated when Hercules came with the mission. "You, the great hero, come to be a cleaner?" taunted the king, laughing in front of his guards. But Hercules was not angry. He just smiled and said, "If I can clean your entire stable in one day, will you give me some of your cattle as a reward?" King Eurystheus, convinced that the task was impossible, agreed without hesitation in the presence of a witness, his own son. Then Hercules began to think. Not with his bare hands, not with bare hands, not with buckets and shovels. He needed the power of nature. With great ingenuity, Hercules sought out 2 large rivers that flowed near the stables, Alpheus River and Peneus River. He then dug 2 giant trenches, diverting the flow of the rivers directly into the enclosure. The water rushed through, washing away the mud, dirt, and stench in just a few hours. The rivers became natural cleaners, and the stable that had been filthy for 3 decades was now sparkling clean in one day. King Eurystheus was shocked, but once he realized Hercules had actually succeeded, he refused to keep his promise. "I didn't tell you to clean the stable with water magic," he argued. He canceled the agreement unilaterally. But his son, who was a witness, defended Hercules. Later, the son would overthrow the father and make Hercules the hero of Elis. 5th task completed. 6th task. Repel the man-eating birds of Lake Stymphalos. Having cleansed the cage with the power of nature, Hercules must now face the terrors of the sky. In a remote area called Stymphalos, near a desolate lake surrounded by dense forests and swamps beyond the reach of mere mortals, lives a group of monstrous Stymphalian birds. But these are no ordinary birds. These creatures are the creations of Ares, the god of war. Their beaks and claws are made of sharp metal, and their feathers can be released and thrown like a rain of arrows. They feed on humans and animals, slicing through flesh and leaving bones scattered on the shores of the lake. The locals lived in fear, villages were abandoned, and the skies of Stymphalos were always filled with dark clouds that signaled danger. Hercules' task, to drive the birds from their hiding place. But this time, strength alone was not enough. The birds were hiding among the trees and swamps, too numerous to face head-on. They would take flight if approached, then attack from the air. As Hercules puzzled over how to accomplish this task, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, appeared and gave him a special tool, a magical bronze rattle made by Hephaestus, the god of blacksmithing. It was so loud and piercing that it could even disorient mythical birds. Hercules climbed to the top of the hill by the lake. When morning came and the fog lifted, he went up to the hill by the lake. When morning came and the fog lifted, she rang her rattles loudly. The loud sound breaks the silence. The quiet swamp suddenly shook. The iron birds came out of hiding, flying frantically into the air, circling in chaos. And that's when Hercules acted. With a huge bow and poisoned arrows that he had previously dipped in Hydra blood, he shot them one by one. Each arrow pierced the metal feathers, knocking the beast to the earth. Black blood littered the marshland. Some of the birds escaped, flying away from Stymphalos and never returning. The people returned to their lands and the skies over the lake brightened for the first time in years. Task 6 was complete. Task 7. Capture the Cretan bull. Having faced filth, birds of prey, and multi-headed creatures, Hercules must now sail to an island known in the legends and intrigues of the gods, the island of Crete. There raged a giant bull, white as snow, with eyes like fire and strength like a storm. This bull was no ordinary animal. It was the creation of Poseidon, the god of the sea, and was once sent as a divine omen to King Minos of Crete. But the king, instead of sacrificing the bull to Poseidon as ordered, hid it and let it live. As a result of Poseidon's wrath, the bull became wild and uncontrollable, rampaging across the island, destroying fields, decimating livestock, and striking fear into the hearts of the people. King Eurystheus sent Hercules with one mission: capture the creature alive and bring it back to mainland Greece. Journey to Crete. Hercules sailed across the sea to Crete. Ferocious waves tested his ship, but the sea god Poseidon seemed to hold back his anger, watching silently as the son of Zeus dealt with his creature. Once in Crete, Hercules did not immediately attack. He studied the bull's movements. He saw how the giant beast shattered trees with just a stomp of his foot, and how his breath blew like steam from the crater of a volcano. The Battle of the Cretan Pasture. Finally, Hercules faced the bull in a vast meadow. With a towering body and muscles of steel, the hero lunged at the creature without a sharp weapon, for he had to take him alive. The bull charged, its horns almost hitting Hercules, but the hero jumped and rolled, then climbed onto the creature's back and entangled its neck and legs with steel chains. The fight lasted a long time. The ground shook, dust billowed into the sky, and both men were out of breath. But in the end, the demigod's strength prevailed. Hercules managed to tame the bull, restrain it with a harness, and take it back to Greece in a large ship. The end of the bull arriving on land. King Eurystheus trembled at the sight of such a huge creature. He immediately hid in the bronze urn where he used to hide when he was afraid of the creatures brought by Hercules. The Cretan bull was eventually released and left to roam the Greek land. Later, this same creature would be recaptured by another character in the mythology of Theseus, the hero of Athens. 7th task completed. 8th task: capture Diomedes' man-eating horses. After conquering the bulls of Crete, Hercules was given no time to rest. The insatiable King Eurystheus gave him a new, tougher task, and this time it involved the monstrous horses that lived in ancient Bulgaria. The horses of Diomedes, owned by King Diomedes, were renowned throughout the world for their prowess and brutality. Not just ordinary horses, they were man-eaters, fed daily by Diomedes with human flesh provided by prisoners of war. The horses had burly bodies, sharp teeth like daggers, and an insatiable appetite, capable of pouncing on anyone who dared to get close. Hercules' task this time was clear: capture the horses alive and bring them back to Tiryns. But to do so, he must first defeat King Diomedes himself, who was known to be a cruel and powerful leader. Journey to the land of Diomedes. Hercules, undaunted by this challenge, set sail for the land of Diomedes. He knew that the horses were heavily guarded by soldiers loyal to the king. On the way, Hercules not only had to face the rugged terrain, but also face the army of Diomedes who blocked the way. Arriving in the land of Diomedes, Hercules devised his plan. He knew that if he relied solely on his physical strength, he would not be able to win against the wild horses. In order to control them, he had to weaken the king who controlled them first. Confronting King Diomedes was a proud and fearless king. He saw Hercules as a challenge that had to be destroyed. When they met on the battlefield, there was a fierce duel between Hercules and Diomedes. The powerful king wielded his long spear, attacking with deadly agility and fighting skills. However, Hercules, with the power of the gods within him, broke Diomedes' spear in one powerful strike and toppled the king with a blow that made the ground shake. King Diomedes fell helpless before Hercules, and the hero did not kill him, but decided to give Diomedes to the horses himself. Man-eating horses. After Diomedes was handed over to the man-eating horses, who immediately feasted wildly on the king's body, the horses were finally satiated, and after their hunger was satisfied, they became docile and obedient. With no more anger or hatred, the horses could finally be organized and firmly tied by Hercules. With great skill, Hercules managed to bring the 4 horses back to Greece without much difficulty. Not only did they manage to bring them back alive, but the horses seemed tame, no longer as vicious as before. Back to Tyrans arriving in Tyrans, King Eurystheus was terrified at the sight of the tame-looking horses. But despite having completed the task perfectly, Hercules had to face the king's worries and doubts again. No matter, he brought proof of his success and proved that nothing was impossible for him. The 8th task was completed. 9th task. Obtain Queen Hippolyta's magic belt. After conquering man-eating horses and facing a variety of challenging mythological creatures, Hercules was faced with a much more complicated task, obtaining a magical belt that belonged to Queen Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons. This belt was no ordinary belt. It was a golden belt given to him by Ares, the god of war, symbolizing strength, courage, and glory. It was a symbol of Queen Hippolyta's rule over the Amazons, a powerful tribe of female warriors who were not to be trifled with. King Eurystheus wanted the belt as one of the proofs of Hercules' victory over the power of gods and legendary creatures. Hercules' mission is clear: get the belt and bring it back. But it's not as easy as one might think. Journey to the land of the Amazons. Hercules sailed to a land at the far end of the world known as the land of the Amazons, a region inhabited by warrior women where no men were allowed to live. Once Hercules arrived there, he met Queen Hippolyta, who had heard from the gods that a demigod was coming to ask for his belt. Initially, Hippolyta was willing to give it to him peacefully. She saw Hercules as a hero full of courage and recognized his strength. The two of them even talked about fighting and warfare and respected each other. However, Hera, the goddess who always tried to bring down Hercules, could not let this task be completed peacefully. Cunningly, Hera whispered lies to the Amazon warriors, inciting them that Hercules had come to take away their belts and destroy their honor. The Amazon warriors felt threatened and angry, and before long, battle broke out. Battle with the Amazons. Hercules tried to explain that he had no intention of fighting, but all his good words were in vain. Queen Hippolyta, who was very honorable, felt that her pride and the honor of her tribe were at stake. She led the Amazons in battle against Hercules and his army. The Amazon warriors were famous for their fighting skills. They used bows, swords, and spears, and were trained in combat from a young age. In a battlefield full of tension and power, Hercules fought with all his might, facing deadly attacks from the great female warriors. However, despite his formidable foes, Hercules was a demigod hero with incredible physical strength. With each attack, he defeated one Amazon warrior after another, but he did not kill them. He just wanted to take the magic belt. Taking the magic belt. Finally, after a very fierce and bloody battle, Hercules managed to approach Queen Hippolyta. The queen, who was initially willing to give him peacefully, was now forced to hand over the belt, knowing that the honor of her tribe would not return if she did not relent. Hercules took the belt and bowed his head as a sign of respect to Queen Hippolyta, who, although disappointed, recognized that she had faced a true hero. The battle may have been fought because of Hera's trickery, but both warriors respected each other's strength. Back to Tyrans, with the magic belt in his hand, Hercules sailed back to Tyrans. Queen Hippolyta and the Amazons returned to their land, and despite the pain of unnecessary fighting, they understood that their destiny had been determined by the play of the gods. Arriving in Tyrans, King Eurystheus received the belt with coldness and indifference, although he was very satisfied with Hercules' success. But Hercules, who had achieved yet another victory, was simply exhausted and ready for the next challenge. The 9th task was complete. 10th task: stealing Geryon's red cows. After receiving the magic belt from Queen Hippolyta, Hercules was once again summoned by King Eurystheus for his next assignment, a challenge that was tougher and more distant than he could have ever imagined. Geryon, a giant with 3 heads, 6 arms, and 2 bodies, guards a herd of legendary red cows in the far west of the world, in a place far away and remote. Geryon is not just any creature. He is protected by an equally powerful and ferocious guard dog and the Stymphalian birds, killer birds that can be thrown like arrows. Therefore, Hercules had to take a long journey full of obstacles and dangers just to get the cows. However, nothing could stop Hercules' determination. With unwavering passion and courage, he began to prepare himself for an epic journey that would test his mettle. Journey to the west end of the world. Hercules' journey began by crossing oceans and deserts, heading for lands never before explored by man. He must navigate harsh terrain, hot deserts, and storms that come without warning. He also found himself in a land inhabited by evil creatures who sought to stand in his way. However, Hercules was not one to give up easily. He has many survival skills and uses his physical strength to overcome various obstacles. One of the key moments in this journey was when he built the Pillars of Hercules at the Straits of Gibraltar, as a sign that he had crossed the boundary of the known world and entered into a region of mystery. The pillars became a symbol of Hercules' power and also a sign that nothing could stop him, despite his arduous journey. After some time, he finally reached the western end of the world, right where Geryon and his herd of red cows were. Battle with Geryon and his guard dogs. Upon arriving in this distant and isolated land, Hercules discovered that Geryon did not live in one easily accessible place. The giant ruled over a remote island, surrounded by water and sharp rocks that were almost impenetrable. Geryon, with his massive body and 3 fearsome heads, was a powerful and almost invincible creature. Plus, a ferocious guard dog faithfully guarded his herd of red cows. Hercules knew that in order to take the cows, he must first defeat Geryon. The battle that ensued between Hercules and Geryon was a fierce battle involving tremendous physical strength. Geryon, with his 3 heads, attacked Hercules from various directions, while his 6 arms swung heavy weapons to crush his opponent. However, Hercules was used to challenging battles. With great ingenuity and strength, Hercules defeated Geryon in a fight that lasted a very long time. After defeating the giant, Hercules not only killed him, but he also had to face a guard dog who was trying to defend his master. With one powerful strike, Hercules managed to subdue the dog. Stealing the red cows. Once Geryon was dead and the guard dog was put down, Hercules could now take Geryon's herd of red cows. However, this task was not as easy as one might think. Aside from facing Geryon and his guard dog, Hercules must also face other creatures that try to stand in his way to bring the cows home. But nothing could stop Hercules. He managed to collect the red cows and carry them carefully, making sure that no one would damage them. On the way back, he faced various dangers, from a huge storm to threats from hunters and other mythological creatures trying to take the cows away from him. Back to Tiryns. After a long and arduous journey, Hercules finally returned to Tiryns with Geryon's herd of red cows. Although he had defeated giants and overcome many obstacles, King Eurystheus was not satisfied. Instead, he simply accepted the cows with indifference, as if it was a natural thing to do. However, for Hercules, this victory was proof that nothing was impossible for him. He had defeated one of the most powerful giants in mythology and brought back precious treasures for King Eurystheus, even if he didn't get the recognition he deserved. The 10th task was complete. 11th task. Retrieve the golden fruit from the Garden of the Hesperides. Having successfully completed the previous challenging tasks, Hercules now faces the much more difficult and mysterious task of retrieving the golden fruit from the Garden of the Hesperides. This golden fruit was a precious gift, planted by the god Gaia, mother of the earth, and given to the princesses of the Hesperides as a sign of prosperity and good fortune. However, the fruit was guarded very closely by Ladon, a giant dragon that could not be defeated. Hercules' task is to steal the golden fruit and bring it back as part of his redemption. However, there is one big problem. Hercules has no idea where the garden is. Hesperides Garden Location Search. The Garden of the Hesperides is located in a very distant place at the end of the world that is almost unreachable by humans. To find this garden, Hercules knew that he needed to ask the gods, as only they knew its true location. However, not all gods would give clues easily, and Hercules had to face many challenges. First, he sought information from Prometheus, a titan known for his wisdom and great knowledge. However, to get information from Prometheus, Hercules must first free him from the eternal torment inflicted by Zeus. As we know, Prometheus was punished by being chained to a mountain, and every day an eagle came to eat his liver. Hercules, with courage and pity, managed to free Prometheus by killing the eagle and breaking the chains that bound Prometheus. With Prometheus's help, Hercules eventually learns that the garden is on a far-off island. guarded by dangerous creatures, including Ladon, a giant dragon so powerful that it cannot be fought easily. Meeting Atlas, the sky bearer. Hercules realized that in order to complete this task, he needed help from even more powerful beings. On his long journey, he met Atlas, the titan who carried the heavens on his shoulders as punishment for his rebellion against the gods. Atlas was one of the most powerful and wise beings, and Hercules knew that only Atlas could retrieve the golden fruit from the garden, as he could fight the dragon Ladon and face other challenges. However, to get Atlas's help, Hercules had to make a deal. Atlas agreed to go to the Garden of the Hesperides and retrieve the golden fruit, but on one condition. Hercules had to temporarily take his place and carry the sky while he retrieved the fruit. Hercules, despite knowing that this was a Herculean task, agreed without hesitation, knowing that this was the only way he could achieve his goal. Cheekiness, taking the golden fruit. After Hercules replaced Atlas and shouldered the heavens, Atlas set off towards the Garden of the Hesperides. Once in the garden, Atlas defeated Ladon with incredible strength and toughness and retrieved the golden fruit with ease. Hercules, who was carrying the heavens very heavily, waited in his place expectantly. However, when Atlas returned with the golden fruit, he had a cunning idea. He decided not to carry the sky again and instead told Hercules to carry the sky forever so that he could bring the golden fruit back. Atlas, feeling relieved of this onerous task, tried to leave Hercules in a very difficult position. But Hercules, with his keen ingenuity, deceived Atlas. He said to Atlas, "I will take your place in carrying the heavens, but I just want to make sure that I carry them properly first. I'll put the sky down for a while, just to feel how heavy it is." The unsuspecting Atlas agreed, and quickly Hercules removed the sky from his shoulders and took the golden fruit from Atlas's hands. Once Hercules took the golden fruit, he quickly deceived Atlas again. Hercules said that he was ready to carry the sky again, and handed the sky back to Atlas without giving Atlas a chance to dodge. Atlas, who was exhausted and did not expect that Hercules could be so cunning, finally returned to carrying the sky and left Hercules to go carry the golden fruit back to Tyrans. Returning to Tyrans with the golden fruit, Hercules returned with the precious golden fruit, which sparkled and illuminated everything around him. He carried the fruit carefully, knowing that although he had overcome many obstacles, it was a symbol of his success in completing one of the most difficult tasks. Upon his arrival in Tyrans, King Eurystheus saw the golden fruit that Hercules was carrying and, as usual, showed an indifferent attitude. However, Hercules was only satisfied with himself, for he knew that his success in this task showed that nothing could deter him in his quest for redemption. The 11th task was completed. 12th task, capture the Hound of Hell Cerberus. The final task given to Hercules by King Eurystheus was the most difficult and terrifying of all the previous tasks. Capture Cerberus, the invincible guard dog of hell. Cerberus was a terrifying creature, with 3 heads, a snake tail, and the ability to bite anyone who dared to approach him. He guarded the gates of the underworld where the souls of the dead rested, and no one had ever managed to take him from that world. However, Hercules is not afraid. He had faced challenges, terrifying mythological creatures, and unimaginable obstacles, so he knew that this final task would test his mettle more than ever. However, there was one important condition. Hercules could not carry a weapon. He must capture Cerberus with his bare hands, relying solely on his own strength and ingenuity. Journey to the Underworld. Hercules began his journey to the Underworld, a place known as Hades where the souls of the dead reside. Along his journey, he passed the murky river Styx, which could only be crossed by boat, and met Charon, the boatman who carried souls across the river to the kingdom of the dead. Charon, who was not above letting people cross the river, eventually agreed to transport Hercules across the river, finally agreed to transport Hercules after he pointed out that he came with the very important purpose of gaining permission from Hades and capturing Cerberus. After crossing the river Styx, Hercules arrived at the kingdom of Hades, located in the depths of the underworld. There he saw various trapped souls, as well as the strange creatures that inhabited the place. However, Hercules' purpose was clear. He had to meet Hades, the god of the underworld, and ask for permission to capture the guard dog. Meeting with Hades, Hercules made his way to the throne of Hades, the god of the underworld who ruled over the realm of the dead. Hades, though known as a harsh and unforgiving god, knew that Hercules was the son of Zeus, and thus possessed great courage and strength. Hercules, with great respect, asked Hades for permission to capture Cerberus. He explained that this was the last task given to him by King Eurystheus, and that he promised not to harm Cerberus. After listening to Hercules' explanation, Hades finally gave permission on one condition. Hercules must capture Cerberus with his own hands without the use of weapons or excessive violence. Hades warned that Cerberus was a very powerful and dangerous creature, but he respected Hercules' determination. With permission from Hades, Hercules began his quest to find Cerberus in the depths of the underworld. Capturing Cerberus. Cerberus resides in the depths of Hades, guarding the gates of the underworld. It has 3 large heads, sharp teeth, and a massive body filled with immense power. Each head of Cerberus could chew and tear apart anyone who came near, and its voice could echo throughout the underworld. However, Hercules was ready for this challenge. He knew that Cerberus would not give up easily, but he believed that his courage and physical strength would be enough to defeat the dog. Given that he was not allowed to use weapons, Hercules planned to rely on his incredible physical strength as well as his ingenuity. The moment Hercules found Cerberus, the dog let out a loud cry that shook the ground, showing its strength and fury. With incredible composure, Hercules approached Cerberus without showing fear, even though he knew that one mistake could mean his death. After a while, with surprising speed and agility, Hercules approached Cerberus and, with his bare hands, seized him by the neck. He used his incredible strength and courage to control Cerberus without the use of weapons. And although Cerberus tried hard to break free, Hercules managed to hold the creature firmly. Back to Tyrans. With Cerberus captured, Hercules took the dog back to the human world. He traveled the same path, including the journey across the river Styx, and continued his journey towards Tyrans. Upon arriving before King Eurystheus, Hercules showed him a bowed, motionless, and completely docile Cerberus. King Eurystheus, who was terrified at the sight of such a fearsome dog, attempted to flee, but the job was done. Cerberus, who had been captured by Hercules without the use of force or weapons, was then returned to the underworld after being shown to King Eurystheus as proof that Hercules had completed his last task. The end of the 12 tasks. With the 12th task successfully completed, Hercules could finally end the series of 12 impossible tasks given by King Eurystheus. He had proven his courage, ingenuity, and physical strength in the face of every challenge, and these tasks had led him towards redemption from his previous sins. Although Hercules eventually managed to accomplish all these tasks, his struggle in seeking redemption and proving himself as a hero did not stop here. The story of Hercules, filled with trials, sacrifices, and triumphs, continues to inspire to this day as a symbol of unwavering courage and incredible sacrifice. After going through ordeal after ordeal, from fighting ferocious monsters to facing death itself, Hercules finally completed the 12 impossible tasks given to him. Each task was not only a test of physical strength, but also of incredible fortitude, ingenuity, and courage. He endured suffering not for personal glory, but to atone for the tragic wrongs he had committed. Hercules was no longer just known as the son of Zeus or a man of extraordinary strength. He became a symbol of perseverance, redemption, and true courage. His life story inspired mortals and even made the gods look up to him. After all the struggles, adventures, and sacrifices, Hercules finally earned the forgiveness of the gods. In recognition of his bravery and merit, he was elevated to godhood and invited to live on Mount Olympus, the home of the immortal gods. There he was welcomed as a brother and equal by the other gods, and lived eternally at the side of his father, Zeus. Today, the name Hercules is immortalized in legend. He became a true hero, not because he never failed, but because he always got up and kept going, no matter how heavy the burden. His story continues to be told from generation to generation about the strength, suffering, redemption, and triumph of a demigod who conquered his own destiny. Thank you for listening to this story. May Hercules' courage inspire you too to face life's challenges, no matter how small, with great spirit. See you in the next great story.